push it back a little bit further this way. All right, thanks. Yeah, cool. So we online here? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's turn on. I'll just.
Okay. So, before we begin here, we'll sing a little song about Krishna and Vrindavan. So, most of you familiar with the song. You guys are welcome to chant along. As we usually do. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivanadari Gopijana Vallabha Girivanadari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai, Shri Shri Radhagiri Hari ki jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai ki jai. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Glories to the Prabhupada. So before I begin here, I'd just like to know if there's anyone here for the first time. It's not that I'm trying to single anybody out, but just so I can speak in such a way that they can gain knowledge and kind of understand, Okay. So without further ado, I guess here we'll begin. So I'm going to do something a little bit unconventional today. Instead of beginning with, normally we read a verse from one of our scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita at the beginning. But today I'm going to start with a story, and then eventually I'll work my way into a little quote from Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm going to tell a story. This story I heard here once at the temple by Tirtha Maharaj, and I also saw it at at a community health office that I go to. So it's interesting. Little different takes on it in each place. So here goes the story here. So there's this young person, young man, and he's walking on the beach. And there's these starfish that have washed up on the beach. So the starfish, when it's on the beach, if it stays there, it'll dry out and it'll die, And so this boy, he's going along and he's picking up the starfish and putting him back in the ocean. And he's doing this for like some time, some hours, And then some older gentleman, he comes by and sees the boy doing this, and he tells the boy, like, hey, you've done a lot, you've done some good work and all that, but, you could take it easy. You take a break, You take a break, what difference does it make if you're out here another, like, 20 minutes, just, like, take it easy, And so the boy, he picks up another starfish and throws in the ocean. He's like, "Oh, I made a difference for that one." So this is kind of a nice, encouraging story, you know. That's probably why they put this up in this health office, you know, trying to inspire people to move forward in their lives, you know, work hard and do good for others, you know. It's in one sense like a noble thing, you know. But we could look at this a little bit in a different way also. We'll play with this analogy, this story a little bit. So we can see, although this boy, he was doing this noble work, you might say, of putting all this starfish back in the ocean, it doesn't take a lot of intelligence to see that they're going to be in the same situation again very soon. You know, he puts them back in the ocean and they come up again. So in one sense, his activity, although it's with good intentions, it's not really actually very intelligent. You know, the starfish, they may be getting some temporary benefit, but they're ultimately going to end up in the same situation again. So this brings me to some words that Srila Prabhupada would use. They're Sanskrit words. I was just hearing about in a lecture today. Srila Prabhupada was explaining these words of Shreya and Preya. So Shreya means like long-term good, and ultimate, and you know, there's also this term called Shreya Uttama, like the ultimate good. But then there's also Preyas, which is like short-term good. So Srila Prabhupada, in trying to explain this principle, he gives the example of a child. So children, naturally, they like to play. You know, they like to, you know, go here and there and just kind of play and just kind of act frivolously, you know. So for the child, that's quite enjoyable for them. It's to his immediate good. It's preyas for the child. It's nice for him. But the parents, being the very mean people they are, they take him to school so he can get educated and be prepared, you know, for life's challenges, and you know, kind of support himself later on, you know, so the kid isn't in trouble later on. So this isn't exactly immediately pleasing to the child. You know, the child wants to, you know, go do whatever, you know. But the parents, knowing his higher good, they take him to school. So this is known as Shreyas. So we want to help someone else. We want to try to do good. Intelligently, we should. How should we want to do good? We should want to do good in such a way that is actually lasting. So there's another little story here. Here, so many stories. This is one from Radhanath Maharaj. He tells. So Radhanath Swami, and he travels quite a bit, and at one point after a tour, I believe, so he was in an airport, and he was just kind of looking to lay low and take it easy, you know, a lot of traveling and preaching and whatever. He wants to take it easy. But it was announced that it was like the Minister of the Environment or some environmental position, this lady, she wanted to speak to Radhanath Maharaj. So, you know, a big important lady wants to speak to Radhanath Maharaj, so he's like, okay, well, even though he wants to rest, he'll take the opportunity to speak to this lady. So this lady, she was, you know, in charge. She was very much involved in environmental efforts, trying to, you know, trying to help the environment, pollution, that kind of thing, you know. So she came up to Radhanath Maharaj and she was challenging him. She was like, well, what are you sadhus? What are you doing for the environment? You know, she was like very kind of jabbing at Radhanath Maharaj, you know. So Radhanath Maharaj, he took the time to try to explain to her what sadhus like him are actually doing for the environment. So he was acknowledging, okay, yes, the environment, it's polluted. There's some kind of issue there. You know, there's definitely an issue there. But you can go on. You can go and, you know, you can go clean up. You can go clean up pollution here. You can go, you know, like, you can go clean this, clean that. You know, maybe try to introduce new standards, you know, to keep the environment nice. You know, you could do all those things, but you have to also look at the root cause of what is causing the environment to be polluted. It's not simply that people drive cars or that you know, it's not simply one isolated reason. It's because actually that the hearts of the people are polluted. You know, like someone might be taking bribes to might let this company kind of slide, dump their crud into the river or the air, someone, people, or the people, maybe the industries, they just frankly just don't, maybe some industrialist, he just frankly doesn't care about the environment, so he'll just go pollute all he wants, and try to cheat the system, So even if they kind of introduce all these, even if this environmental lady, even if she goes and kind of tries to do her effort in cleaning up the environment, Radha Maharaj said, unless you clean the hearts of the people, they'll get polluted all over again. And she was actually quite satisfied with his answer. And then he was explaining that actually both things need to be there. Some steps can be taken, but ultimately we have to come to the root of the problem, that the people, the people with ill intentions, you might say, and gotta change that. So the devotee, they look to purify the heart of others, and the devotee, he's looking for an ultimate kind of benefit. So at this point, I'd like to read a little section from the Bhagavatam. This is from the 7th canto, and this is from Prahlad Maharaj's teachings to his schoolmates. So Prahlad Maharaj, he was in a very special school. It was designed to train him to be the best and brightest ruler of the earth, but it wasn't exactly on religious principles. It was kind of on this idea of domination. This take control and manipulate and do this and do that, and somehow or other, kind of take the top position. So Prahlad Maharaj, he was being taught like that in his schools. But Prahlad Maharaj, he really wasn't very much interested in that. He had been instructed while actually still in the womb of his mother by Narada Muni. So Prahlad Maharaj, he was a devotee from even before his birth. So instead of being influenced by his teachers and trying to develop this manipulative mentality, Prahlad Maharaj actually instructed his fellow students on how to be a devotee of Krishna and what is the ultimate goal of life. So I'll read this little section here from 7th canto. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying, the human form of life affords one a chance to return home back to Godhead. Therefore every living entity, especially in the human form of life, must engage in devotional service to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. This devotional service is natural because Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the most beloved, the master of the soul, and the well-wisher of all other living beings. So I'll read a little bit from the purport here. So the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 5:29, Bhoktaram yagitapasam sarvalokam maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam yanatva mam shanti mrichati. Quote, the sages, knowing me is the ultimate purpose of all the sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material miseries. Simply by understanding these three facts, that the Supreme Lord Vishnu is the proprietor of the entire creation, that he is the best well-wishing friend of all living entities, and that he is the supreme enjoyer of everything, one becomes peaceful and happy. For this transcendental happiness, the living entity has wandered throughout the universe in different forms of life and different planetary systems. But because he has forgotten his intimate relationship with Vishnu, he has merely suffered life after life. Therefore, the educational system in the human form of life should be so perfect that one will understand his intimate relationship with God, or Vishnu. Every living entity has an intimate relationship with God. One should therefore glorify the Lord in the adoration of Shantaras, or revive his eternal relationship with Vishnu as a servant in Dasyaras, a friend in Sakyaras, a parent in Vatsalyaras, or a conjugal lover in Madhuryaras. All these relationships are on the platform of love. Vishnu is the center of love for everyone, and therefore the duty of everyone is to engage in the service of the Lord. As stated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto, Yesham aham priya atma sutas jasaka guru surido daivam ishtam. In any form of life we are related with Vishnu, who is the most beloved, the super soul, the friend, and the guru. Our eternal relationship with the Lord can be revived in the human form of life, and that should be the goal of education. Indeed, that is the perfection of life and the perfection of education. So Prahlad Maharaj, he is explaining here that the devotee, his main focus in life is educating others about the process of Krishna consciousness and becoming Krishna conscious himself. And this Krishna consciousness, this is the how should I put this? This is actually the prerogative of the human form of life. That the human form of life, it is the unique opportunity to kind of think about life's questions. Think about, who am I? Why am I here? You know, what's all going on here? What is the meaning of all this? This human form of life is the unique platform which we can do that. We don't see the squirrels having a philosophical debate with each other. You know, they're just out to do whatever they're going to do. You know, the human form of life is unique in that way. So, back to this kind of topic of doing good for others, that this Krishna consciousness, it's not simply that we philosophize and kind of go on in a difficult situation. That actually, this education, this Krishna conscious education, by this knowledge, one becomes peaceful in this life, even despite many difficult circumstances that may or may not come up. So this is actually the benefit, or I could say one of the benefits of Krishna consciousness. It's described in the Bhagavad Gita that this process of Krishna consciousness, it's something that is joyfully performed. It's not simply just an austerity. It's something actually nice to do. And the Bhagavad Gita is explained that that someone, they may have some desires which may not be good for them. You know, they may, just like someone, they may like to eat too much candy or something like that. But until they get a higher taste, until they actually have a reason to give that up, it's very hard to do. You know, it's very hard to do that. So Krishna consciousness, the Bhagavad Gita proposes that actually by experiencing a higher taste, by experiencing something better, then we can give up kind of our old bad habits. So this is actually a very nice thing. So the message for the doing it in this age, this time we're in, is very simple actually. So I'll read a quote here from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a famous verse, devotees like to quote it. This is from 11th Canto, Chapter 5, text number 32. Krishna Vanam Tvisa Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parsadam Yagya Sankirtan Prayer Yajanti Hi Sumedasa. In this age of Kali, intelligent persons perform the congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the names of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. So the method for this age is simply put chanting Hare Krishna. It's quite simple. Prabhupada would say even a child could do it. That this chanting Hare Krishna, it has numerous effects, some of them esoteric and some of them simple. But one way of explaining it is as Lord Chaitanya did. Lord Chaitanya explained that this chanting of Hare Krishna, it cleanses the mirror of the heart. In other words, it kind of cleans the dirty things in our heart, cleans our selfish desires. I was explaining it to this rather new person in Houston, when I was in Houston, and I was explaining to him, I chant Hare Krishna, and hopefully it makes me less of a jerk. But a little more than that. It's supposed to bring out, not only does it kind of extinguish the bad qualities, but Krishna consciousness, it brings out the good qualities. It's said that the devotee, he gradually develops the qualities that are there in the demigods. So like kindness, compassion, speaking the truth, speaking kindly, or, these things like that. This chanting of Hare Krishna, it'll do that. People they're quite anxious to try to develop these good qualities, So why not take up this process of chanting Hare Krishna? It's quite simple here. So also kind of in that mood, one should not be overly diverted to other processes. So And this is also another famous verse. I'm just gonna read it from. It appears in the Madhya Lila, chapter 7, I think, text number 71. Let's see if I can pull it up. Technical difficulties here. 1 second. Okay. So, I did not write down the verse right, so I'm going to ask for someone in the audience to help me out here once I can start quoting the verse. What? Hare Nama eva kevalam. Kalo nasteva gatiranyata. I guess I knew it. So, in this age, there is no other method, no other way than chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So, this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, it is the core of our practice. It is the authorized method for attaining self-realization in this age. So one does not need to so much overthink it. You know, it is a process brought to us by Lord Chaitanya, by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, by our own Srila Prabhupada, and disciples coming from Srila Prabhupada. So it is not it is something we should take an interest in. So Srila Prabhupada, he did not although he encouraged simplicity in his followers, he also did not encourage blind following. There is anyways, I don't know the whole story exactly, so I won't tell it. But this chanting of Hare Krishna, it's something that one can put to the test to some extent. One can chant Hare Krishna and you can actually practically see or feel the effect. Otherwise, people who have been doing it for a while, they wouldn't keep doing it. You know, there's something there to it. There's something in this Hare Krishna mantra. So, in addition to this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, although it is very simple, although it is the core of our process, it is also advised in the Bhagavad Gita that one takes shelter of a spiritual master. In this way, one can shape his life in such a way that it is actually favorable to this chanting of Hare Krishna. So the verse in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 34, Krishna, he explains here, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So I'll just read a tiny section of the purport here. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. No one can become a bona fide spiritual master without following the principle of disciplic succession. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of pretenders. The Bhagavatam says, Dharmantu shat chat bhagavan pranitam. The path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help one to the right path. Nor by independent study of books of knowledge can one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender, and one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant without false prestige. Satisfaction with the spiritual master is a secret of advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission constitute the proper understanding, proper combination for spiritual understanding. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the spiritual master will not be effective. One has to pass the test of the spiritual master, and when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. Not only should one hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must also get a clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind toward the disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries becomes perfect. So sometimes, I am drawing this person, maybe not exist, but sometimes people, they have something against accepting a spiritual master, accepting a spiritual guide. You know, they think, oh, I can figure everything out on my own. But we can see practically in life that everyone, right, in practically every field, has a guide. When we're born, you know, we are very much dependent on our mother. Mother feeds us. Mother gives us some basic education. Eat this, don't eat this, you know. Take that out of your mouth, you know. And then, you know, later on, you go to school, and you have to learn from the teachers. I mean, there's the books that are there. The books are there. But unless one has a teacher, one may misinterpret things in the books. One may come to the wrong conclusion. And one also gets practical experience of the application of the knowledge. So I think it was, anyways, the example is given that, you know, if I want to become a doctor, or if I go to see a doctor, I would want my doctor to be trained by other doctors. I go to see a surgeon. The surgeon says, "Yeah, I've read how to do the surgery in the books." It's like, "Oh, have you ever seen it done before?" "No." Have you ever done it before?" "No." It's like, I think I'm gonna go somewhere else. You know, I'm not sure I trust you here. You know, so it is natural that actually that a teacher is necessary, because a teacher, he has experience. He has done this before, and he can guide you along the path, and he can prevent us from any pitfalls and mistakes that are there, because he has practical experience. So, yeah, so much to say here, but anyways, so I'm going to go back to the story here again, though, because I heard it a little different way, which is kind of nice, actually. This is the first way I heard it. So, same thing happens, kind of the whole story. But so the old man, he goes up to the boy at the end, and he says, "Oh, you know, like you've done all this work, you know, that's very nice. You know, you should take it easy, you know." So the boy, he goes to he tells the old man, "You know, I've saved all these starfish, you know, but what difference does that make for the next one?" And this is kind of an interesting. I thought this was very interesting when I heard it, and it stuck with me for years. That even though this person, he's saved so many individual starfish, that really doesn't make a difference to the next one when it comes down to it. You know, the next one, he has his own independent suffering, has his own independent life. You know, so what he's done for all those starfish doesn't make a difference to the next one. So I kind of thought a little bit, this kind of imbibes the mood of the devotee, actually, in one sense, because the devotee, he may do so much service for Krishna. He may give his life for serving Krishna. He may do so much, but he's not actually, in one sense, he's not satisfied. He wishes he could do more. You know, that they're like, "Oh, okay, I've distributed so many books, but I wish I could distribute more. I've taken so much prasadam. I wish I could take a little more." Playing a little bit here, but you know, I've given so many lectures on Krishna consciousness and tried to inspire people, but I wish I could give more. You know, like these are things that these are the thoughts of the devotee. The devotee, he understands his limitations. You know, we have this material body. The material body is by its nature limiting, but still the devotee, he wishes he could do more, and this is actually a very nice and noble sentiment. So Radhanath Maharaj, I quote him again, at his Chowpatty Center, I believe, he has this slogan, which I think has become popular. It's always better service. You know, so this is the mood of the devotee, that he always wants to do more. He always wants to do better. So it's said in the Nectar of Instruction, there's numerous items that are favorable for devotional service, but two of them that I'd like to focus on here are enthusiasm and patience. So they actually go hand in hand. So the devotee, he should be enthusiastic in his prosecution of Krishna consciousness. He should execute it with the expectation that actually by following the process, by following the orders of my spiritual master, by following the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, that I actually will make advancement in devotional service. And there is actually no question about it. But one should have patience. One should have patience in the fact that the results may take time, and they may appear in such a way that I may not recognize them immediately. So just like I heard this actually from a story from a devotee a little bit. Just like, you know, if you're a child, you don't really notice yourself growing, you know, so much, you know. But, you know, say some distant relative, you know, they see you like once, twice a year. They come and they see you like, oh, wow, you've grown so much. And the kid's like, I guess, you know. And so I heard this story I think I heard the story from the devotee that, you know, they had gone off somewhere for a while, you know, and they met this devotee that they had not seen for a while. And they saw, oh, that this person's made a lot of spiritual advancement. You know, they could tell. And, you know, for the devotees, he's probably not really noticing as the time goes on, you know. But from an external point of view, someone can actually see that they made a lot of spiritual advancement. You know, so you know, when I see people who've taken to the process of Krishna consciousness, you can practically see how their life changes, how their mood changes. You know, they become more compassionate, more understanding of the things they're actually doing in this world. You know, like that's a basic one, you know, but a lot of, you know, the devotees, many of them, you know, after some time they become vegetarian. They really take a liking of Krishna prasadam. You know, they kind of give up some of their unnecessary habits, you know, maybe some of the bad habits, and they become more and more attached to Krishna, even though they may still have so many material attachments, even though they may be a little rough around the edges still. You can see how much this process actually affects them, and it's such a nice thing. So one should not criticize the process of devotional service for not making perfect people instantly, you know, but one should actually rather glorify the fact that how much it does change people's lives. You know, one should focus too much on the negatives. Where to go from here? So much to be said here. But one thing that I could focus on is this Krishna consciousness. It is something. It is actually a permanent asset of ours. Sometimes devotees like to use this analogy of a transcendental bank account. You put it in there and it keeps on going, you know. But I don't know. I think that what I like about Krishna consciousness, it is something that does not depend on any material circumstance. That one can practice Krishna consciousness whether one's old or young, whether one's sick or well, you know, whether one's hungry or fully satisfied. One can practice Krishna consciousness in any situation, because this Krishna consciousness, it is not something that's simply dependent on rituals and activities. It is a thing of the heart. It kind of sounds a little cheesy to say that, but it actually is. This chanting of Hare Krishna, it's meant to evoke feelings of attachment, of love, of desire to serve Krishna. It's meant to do that. And if someone is taken to the process, from my perception, it does that. You know, even if one is not able to externally practice as they like to. There's a famous story of the Brahmana he was very poor, and he couldn't afford to do some nice opulent puja for Krishna. You know, he couldn't really afford to do anything like that. But one day he had heard that he could offer Krishna service in his mind, you know. So the Brahmana, this very poor Brahmana, he started doing that very elaborately, and eventually he went back to Godhead. You know, I'm skipping a bit of the story for time here, but so lost my train of thought here. So similarly, with us, even though we may be able to not practice Krishna consciousness in the with all the rules and regulations, with how should I put it, in all the ways that we'd like to, then Krishna, he still accepts the effort. He accepts the mood. Now there it comes again. So there's a story of Ram. He was building this bridge to go across the ocean, and so he had his monkey army, all the Hanuman and all his buddies. They were throwing these huge boulders into the ocean, and then there was some small animal, different stories. A spider or a squirrel or something, and it was carrying this little pebble to throw in the water, And Hanuman is get out of the way, get out of the way, you're in my way, I'm trying to do some service, But Ram had chastised him, it was like, hey, he's trying to do service to the best of his capacity as well. And don't forget that I'm the one who's making these rocks float. You're not doing that. So that's another important principle in Krishna consciousness, is it's not something that's done simply on our own strength. If we think about it a little philosophically here, this body, it's not something it's not something I really made up myself. I was talking to one of my roommates the other day, and he was saying like, oh, people, they're so proud of they tend to get proud of their name and their looks, but they don't have control over either of them. It's not like I created my looks when I was born. It's not like I gave myself a name, But people, they get so proud of them, So in a similar way, all our abilities, whatever we have, they're actually coming from Krishna. So we should not be falsely proud of them. And ultimately, Krishna, he's in control of our abilities. He can, what they say, the Christians say, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. So someone, they may have so much energy, they may have so much facility, and then it may be taken away very suddenly. I heard this, I won't mention his name because I don't want to, he's told this story, but I don't want to embarrass him, so I won't mention his name. But this devotee told a story to me that he was lecturing at some university, and he gave a very nice lecture. He was feeling very proud, like, oh, he's kind of feeling a little proud. It can happen. And so he was sitting down to give this lecture, and as soon as he stood up, he pretty much fell over, in front of the whole class, because his legs had fallen asleep completely. So pretty quickly his pride was like shattered. So one should actually also understand where his abilities are coming from, and be humble in his prosecution of Krishna consciousness. So they say that man proposes and God disposes. So we may have our desires to practice Krishna consciousness in such a way. We may want to become purified at such and such a speed. But ultimately, it's up to Krishna. So we should prosecute the process of Krishna consciousness with enthusiasm, determination, and patience, that eventually the result will be there. And we will actually attain to a platform of eternal peace and happiness. So I guess I'm going to stop there. If anyone has any questions or comments, I could open up the floor here. Okay, you, and then Guru Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Yeah, you told about the uniqueness of human life
Yeah, yeah.
and the ability to devote your life to devotional services.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
My question is, what is the amount of work one needs to do to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead? I ask this because, say, if a devotee spent a few hours, or probably chanted once in his lifetime Hare Krishna, and the other devotee has spent his whole life for Hare Krishna, okay, serving the Godhead. Like, so to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is there any threshold? Whether the Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam describes that there is a threshold. If you say that both these devotees can reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then definitely there is a bias.
Mm.
So, is there a threshold which is discussed in the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam? Like, what is one need to do to reach the Supreme
Well, I thought of a few things, but the crux of spiritual advancement is actually following the orders of one spiritual master. So whatever age, whatever time they're in, if one follows the instructions of their spiritual master, they will make advancement. So I'll keep going a little bit. So it may vary it's not a mechanical process. It has to do with the mood and the intensity. Just like I may sit here, I may chant 64 rounds, but the whole time I'm thinking about the beach. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go to the beach, and afterwards I'm gonna like go swimming, and then afterwards I'm gonna go home and sleep, and that's really, I'm not really interested in the rounds. I'm just like chanting, I'm just like, I'll put my time in, then I'll go to Krishna Loka Hotel, afterwards, But someone, they could be chanting 16 rounds, minimum 16 rounds, but they could be chanting with much more intensity. They could be chanting with they could be chanting with a lot more intensity, and they could even not have the ability to do many other processes. Maybe they work full time and they can't come to the temple as much as they like to, or maybe sometimes they can't cook when they want to, and whatever. Maybe they can't follow the rules and regulations as strictly as this person who's chanting 64 rounds, but the person chanting 64 rounds, if they don't have the mood that I want to please Krishna, I'm doing this to please Krishna, then they won't go back to Krishna, in that life at least, if they don't have that mood. So it's not simply a mechanical process, and simply saying like, there's not some magic formula of going back to Godhead, really. Like there's devotees, really, if you read the Bhagavatam, there's devotees in all sorts of situations who went back to Godhead. Like I could think of, for example, there's the example of famous example of a Jamil, who was very pious in his young youth, very pious, very good Brahmana, Pukka Brahman. But he became a real nasty person for most of his life, actually, kind of due to bad association and kind of giving into his lower nature. He became a really nasty person. Became like a thief, a very bad criminal, and crook, and all that stuff. But toward the end of his life, he revived his devotional service and took to the process very sincerely again, and went back to Godhead. Whereas someone else, they may perform devotional service their whole life and achieve the same results as well. So it's kind of an interesting thing that's there. That Krishna, he's looking for that mood of devotion to happen at the end result. Krishna, he's not simply just a judge. It's not like, oh, this person performed more devotional service than this person, so he gets to go back to Godhead, and he gets to go back in a Rolls Royce, and the other person gets to go back in a Toyota Camry. No, Krishna, once the person comes to the pure platform, all their reactions to their previous sinful activities, they're all finished. So somehow or other, by practicing the process of devotional service, if one comes to that pure platform, then he can go back to Godhead in whatever way he does it. But the core, once I bring it back to again, is follow the instructions of the spiritual master. Just like the Grahastha devotees and the Brahmachari devotees, their lifestyle in some ways is different, but they can both achieve perfection, So, I guess I hope that answers your question a little bit.
So you mean to say you cannot reach Godhead without a master?
Yes, actually, yes, but it is not. Yeah, you cannot reach Godhead without a spiritual master, without the instructions of the spiritual master.
So you gave the told the story of the different versions of the starfish.
Yeah.
And one person was saving all the starfish that were in front of him, and feeling good about it, but realizing that he couldn't do more. And the other one was thinking, what about the next batch?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, something. Yes. Okay. Yeah, curative room. Yeah.
No, he wanted to explain the starfish. I can save other stuff.
Yeah.
Better all.
Yeah. Father.
Yeah, just about the question about how much work and everything. It's a question of the quality of the work, not exactly the amount. So it's all about the quality for the most part. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a verse that explains the type of quality you're supposed to have in worshiping Krishna or chanting to Krishna. And at this point, I'll ask the Vedas to do it for yourself. About Queen Kunti's prayer about the
Aishvarya Shrita Shibir.
Oh, yes, when my study was the Shigir, is the man who left the line. I will have to get out of my time to yeah, so what she says there is that, she's speaking directly to Krishna. My dear Lord, you can easily approach, but only by those who are not too much intoxicated with these four opulences of good birth, wealth, education, and personal beauty. Because those who are too much enthralled with those, intoxicated with those, cannot address you with deep feeling. In other words, the quality of the chanting. Really, the thing is you have to recognize that just one chanting of the holy name is so auspicious because it eradicates millions of lifetimes of bad karma. But that doesn't give you pure love of God. That's what happened with the Jamil. The Jamil chanted one name, Orion, and he was delivered from immediate death, didn't have to go to hell. But that wasn't the end of it. Then he came back in his body and went off to the Himalayas and did a lot more purification. Then the airplane came. So there's two different things. One is liberation from your past sinful activities and attaining peace. And the other is real love of God. The latter is what the goal of this society is for. But everything is auspicious. Someone walks through the door one time, chants one name, hits one body, and it's all auspicious. They're on their way, but they have a lot of work to do. The key element is to have absolutely no other desire in the heart when you leave the body than to serve Krishna. Then you go back to God. Get into that state is not for you. But anyone can begin and have tremendous benefits by being in trust. There's no loss in the beginning.
All right. Yes.
It's like a question also would be like a level of surrender, right? Surrender.
I'm sorry?
Surrender. Like a level of surrender that you're at in religion.
Yeah.
Also, I want to read a story from my son where there's this Brahmin who always chants, the God's name all the
Yeah.
time. And there's this other cobbler who just, stitches shoes and is also Krishna conscious. So one day when Narada Muni comes and says, I think that story is there, I think everybody knows. But,
Yeah.
it
You can
comes to
say.
me there where, like when I go to God, because I did so much of work, I've been chanting. And then the cobbler also asks the same question. I think when he goes back to Vishnu, Narada Muni. So Vishnu says, go tell them that I was threading an elephant through this eye of the needle.
Yeah.
And he comes back to Earth, and then both of them ask him, like, will I go? Did he meet Vishnu? Did he say, when will I go back? And Vishnu says, they say that, the Brahmin, I think it's going to take him 1,000 births because thousands of births, and then the cobbler is going to get
Yeah. Next life. Yeah.
same birth, so because he didn't believe that, that Vishnu could do that to the eye of the needle, he could thread the elephant through the eye of the needle.
Yeah.
And the cobbler says, if there's a banana tree,
Yeah.
banana tree in a small, a seed,
Yeah.
God could do that, then why can't he do this? So he believes that.
Yeah.
So the faith is more important than anything else.
Hmm. That's nice. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, just another few minutes. Otherwise, we'll have a little extra kirtan. All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So we'll all have kirtan now. If you could all pick up your mats, put them to the side back there, and we'll have kirtan. Hare Krishna.